A German shepherd dangled from one paw of a skyscraper, and what the baby did next brought everyone to tears. The story you are about to hear will shatter your heart, and then mend it once more. What unfolds when a 5-year-old girl perceives something invisible to everyone else? The revelation will move you to tears. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. The morning sun poured through the kitchen window of the Parkers' 15th-floor apartment, creating golden squares that danced across the breakfast table. Anna Parker, an exhausted emergency room nurse recently finished with her night shift, poured herself a third cup of coffee. Meanwhile, her husband Tom flipped through the newspaper before heading off to his construction job. Their daughter Jane, a delicate little girl with inquisitive eyes that appeared to absorb more than most children her age, suddenly paused in her cereal eating. Mother Jane paused, her spoon suspended in midair, as a dog teetered on the brink of a tumble. Anna gently rubbed her eyes. The fatigue from a long 12-hour shift pressed down on her. "What was that, sweetheart?" "A dog. He's dangling from that tall building." Jane gestured toward the window, her eyes fixed on the gleaming skyscraper across from their apartment complex. Tom glanced up from his newspaper, sharing a knowing look with his wife. This wasn't the first time Jane had noticed something out of the ordinary. Last month, she had insisted there was a bird with a broken wing on their balcony before anyone had seen it. The month before, she had known about Mrs. Wilson's fall in apartment 12B before the ambulance arrived. "Honey, that building is over 500 feet tall. You can't possibly see a dog from here," Anna said gently. But Jane pushed her cereal bowl aside and pressed her face against the window. "He's there, Mommy. He's scared. He's hanging by his paw on the window cleaning thing on the 30th floor. Please look." Tom let out a sigh as he folded his newspaper. "I'll humor her," he whispered to Anna, who merely shrugged. He then moved to join Jane at the window. "Show me where you think you see this dog, Princess." Jane's finger poked at the glass as she counted the floors. 1, 2, 3. "Observe the blue platform from which he is suspended." Tom squinted, straining his eyes. There was indeed a window washing platform visible at approximately the 30th floor of the Horizon Tower, but it was too far away to make out any details. "I don't see any dog, Gene," he said, though his voice held a trace of doubt. Anna became a part of their group. The steaming coffee mug warmed her hands as Tom used the binoculars ones we got for bird watching. He retrieved them from the hall closet and focused on the distant building. His casual smile faded as he caught himself recalling Jane's presence. "Anna, take a look at this." Anna grabbed the binoculars, peering through them with weary eyes that suddenly widened in shock. There on the 30th floor of the Horizon Tower, a large German shepherd was indeed hanging by one paw from the edge of a window washing platform, its body dangling precariously over the street below. "Oh my God," she gasped. "Jane is correct. There is indeed a dog out there. How did you manage to spot that without binoculars?" Jane, however, was not paying attention. She was resolutely tugging on her shoes with her small, determined fingers. "We have to help him, Mommy. He's calling for help." Anna seized the phone, dialing emergency services as Tom knelt beside Jane. "How did you know, Princess? That building is so far away." Jane gazed at her father, her eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond her years. "I just heard him calling. He's very scared, Father, in just 20 minutes. Anna." Tom and Jane hurried downstairs and crossed the street to the base of Horizon Tower, where a crowd was already forming, necks craned upward. Someone had alerted the local news station, and a van emblazoned with the Channel 7 logo pulled up just as the Parkers arrived. "That's my dog," a voice called out. An elderly man in a hospital gown and robe sat in a wheelchair near the building entrance, an attendant standing nervously behind him. "That's my Max. He must have followed me when they took me to the hospital yesterday." Anna approached the man. "Sir, you shouldn't be out of the hospital." The old man's eyes remained fixed on the tiny shape high above. "I had to come when they told me. He's all I have left." His hands trembled in his lap. My name's Walter Hayes. I live on the 31st floor. Max must have gotten out somehow. More emergency vehicles arrived, fire trucks, police cars, and an animal rescue unit. The crowd swelled to nearly 100, all eyes fixed in helpless horror as the German Shepherd fought to hold its ground against the raging flames of the platform fire. Chief Davis, a formidable figure with salt and pepper hair neatly secured in a tight bun, scrutinized the scene through high-powered binoculars. The platform is compromised. It appears to have detached from one of its cables. We cannot send anyone up there as it cannot support the weight of an adult officer. Then Rodriguez, a young officer filled with empathy, shook his head and said, "We can't just let the dog fall. We may need to," said Howard Jenkins, the building manager, a jittery man in a poorly tailored suit who continually wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. "If that platform collapses, it could harm the building or injure someone below. We should evacuate the area and let nature run its course. Are you suggesting we just wait for the dog to plummet to its demise?" Tom's voice rose, causing the building manager to flinch. "I'm just thinking of liability, sir," he said, as a murmur of disapproval rippled through the crowd. "The helicopter is unable to approach closely enough," Chief Davis stated following a radio consultation, "that the wind between these buildings generates a tunnel effect, making it too hazardous." Walter wept softly in his wheelchair, pleading, "Please, please save him." Jane pulled gently at her mother's sleeve. "Max is having a conversation with me." Anna knelt beside her daughter, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "What do you mean, sweetie? The dog's name isn't Max. It's Thunder that the old man overlooked due to his illness." Jane spoke in a straightforward manner, stating that he claimed he was attempting to seek assistance for his companion when he became trapped. Walter Hayes looked up at Jane's words. "Thunder. That was what my late wife called him. I started calling him that too. Max, after she passed." How could this child perceive the worried glances exchanged between Anna and Tom? Jane had experienced this previously, familiar with things she couldn't possibly know. "Thunder requires assistance, Mommy. He's slipping," Jane said urgently, her eyes fixed on the distant platform. As if on cue, the crowd gasped as the German Shepherd's paw slipped slightly, causing the animal to scramble for a better grip. The platform tilted precariously. "We're running out of options," Chief Davis admitted. "The structural engineers say we can't secure the platform from above or below without risking it breaking away completely." "What about from inside the building?" Tom asked. "The nearest windows don't open wide enough for an adult to reach out," explained the building manager. "They're safety windows. They only open about 8 inches. Jane tugged on Tom's hand. "Daddy, I can assist him. The storm is guiding me on how to proceed." Tom knelt to meet his daughter's gaze. "Jane, dear, there's nothing you can do. The adults are working on it, but he's sharing his thoughts with me," Jane insisted, her voice rising. "He knows a secret way. There's a special door behind the big plant on the 30th floor. It leads to where the window washers maintain their belongings." The building manager's eyebrows shot up. "What? How could she possibly know about the maintenance access that's not included in any public building plans?" Tom glanced at the manager, questioning, "Is she right? Is there really such a door, Howard?" Jenkins nodded slowly, affirming, "However, it's kept locked, and only maintenance personnel possess the key." "Can we utilize that to access the dog officer?" Rodriguez inquired. "Theoretically speaking, yes. But the access hatch to the platform is quite small. It was intended for equipment, not for individuals." Jenkins responded, noting the dimensions Anna inquired about, 2 feet by 2 feet. He remarked that an adult wouldn't be able to pass through it. A hush fell over the group as the weight of his words settled in. "No," Anna declared resolutely, drawing Jane closer to her side. "Absolutely not. Of course not." Chief Davis concurred that sending a child into such a perilous situation was out of the question. The crowd's gaze was once again drawn upward as the platform shifted, dropping several inches. Thunder yelped, his paw barely maintaining its grip. prompting a collective gasp from the onlookers. "Please, there must be something we can do," Walter implored, tears streaming down his weathered face. The news crew had set up their equipment and was broadcasting live. "We're here at the base of Horizon Tower," the reporter announced into her microphone, "where a German shepherd is fighting for his life 30 stories above us. Emergency services have arrived, but at this time, no rescue plan has been established." Jane's gaze remained fixed on the small figure hovering in the air. "He's getting tired." "Mommy," she murmured. "His paw hurts." "How do you know these things?" Anna asked, her voice a blend of wonder and fear. Jane shrugged. "I just do. Sometimes animals communicate with men with words, but through pictures and feelings." Grandma remarked, "I possess her gift." Anna's mother had frequently asserted a unique bond with animals, a notion Anna had previously brushed off as mere imagination. Now, however, doubt crept in. A second cable on the platform snapped with a resounding crack audible even from the ground, causing the platform to tilt sharply to one side, precariously suspended by just one cable. Thunder clung on with a frantic determination, but it was evident his strength was waning. "We have minutes, not hours," Chief Davis stated with a somber resolve. Jane abruptly broke free from her mother's hold. "I need to assist him right away." In a flash she surged toward the entrance of the building, leaving no time for anyone to respond. "Jane," Anna called, hurrying after her daughter. Tom was a step behind, but Jane was quick and small. She slipped through the revolving door and into the lobby. "Stop that child," the building manager shouted to the security guard, but the guard was too slow. Jane approached the elevator bank, her finger pressing the up button in quick succession. The people in the lobby cast puzzled glances at the little girl. Just as an elevator arrived, its doors sliding open, Anna and Tom burst through the entrance. "Jane Parker, halt right there," Anna shouted, but Jane had already dashed into the elevator. A businessman stepped out, bewildered by the noise, inadvertently obstructing Anna and Tom's way. The elevator doors started to close. 30th floor, they heard Jane call out as the doors shut. "Call upstairs," Tom yelled to the security guard. "Tell them to stop a little girl when the elevator opens." The guard struggled with his radio as Anna anxiously pressed the call button for another elevator. Outside, the crowd observed in bewilderment as the scene played out both above and below them. The girl from earlier dashed into the building as the news reporter relayed to viewers that her parents seemed to be in pursuit. The situation was unclear, but it appeared she might be trying to reach the dog. Officer Rodriguez spoke urgently into his radio, requesting that officers secure the 30th floor. However, the building was vast with numerous elevator banks and stairwells, making it a challenge to locate one determined little girl. Behind a plant, the building manager recalled suddenly that the west corridor was where their search needed to be focused. Inside the elevator, Jane stood quietly, watching the numbers climb. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the intensity of Thunder's emotionless desperation, his pain. Yet, she also sensed his unwavering determination and loyalty to the old man who had cared for him. "I'm coming," she whispered, urging him to hold on just a little longer. The elevator chimed as it reached the 30th floor, and the doors opened to reveal an empty hallway adorned in corporate beige, with landscape paintings spaced evenly along the walls. Jean stepped outside, closing her eyes for a moment to listen to a sound only she could perceive. With a soft murmur to herself, she turned left and quietly padded down the carpeted corridor, passing by closed office doors. Many of the offices stood vacant, a result of the chaos outside. The few employees who stayed behind gathered at the windows on the far side of the building, captivated by the unfolding drama. Jane arrived at the end of the hallway, where it took a right turn. There, just as she had somehow anticipated, stood a large potted-fir tree. Behind it, partially concealed, was a service door marked "Maintenance Authorized Personnel Only." She attempted to turn the handle, but it was locked. Yet, Thunder had revealed something else to her. Jane knelt and reached beneath the pot, her small fingers searching, until they found a magnetic key case stuck to the bottom of the metal plant stand. She pulled it free and opened it to reveal a key card. Meanwhile, Anna and Tom had reached the 30th floor via another elevator bank. They sprinted through the hallways calling Jane's name. "Has anyone seen a little girl?" Tom inquired of a cluster of office workers assembled by a window. "A little girl with brown hair. I believe I spotted her making her way toward the west corridor," one woman said, gesturing. Anna and Tom sprinted toward that direction, their faces drained of color, filled with dread as they approached the maintenance door. Jane slid the key card through the reader, the light glowed green, and the lock clicked open. She pushed the door ajar, unveiling a slender utility corridor adorned with pipes and electrical conduits. The air felt refreshingly cool, accompanied by a gentle breeze that hinted at an entrance to the outside world just ahead. Jane entered, allowing the door to close softly behind her. The corridor was faintly illuminated by scattered emergency lights. She moved ahead with determination, navigating through the mental images conjured by thunder. Left turn, right turn, through a narrow passage, and down a brief flight of metal stairs. The maintenance corridors twisted and turned like a labyrinth, yet Jane moved through them with unwavering confidence. At last she arrived at another door, marked by a prominent warning sign: "Caution, window washing equipment, access fall hazard." Outside, the crowd had swelled, with police forming a perimeter to keep onlookers at a safe distance, wary of the platform's precariousness or worse, the possibility of the dog falling. Air mattresses, meant for high-fall rescues, were being inflated, though deep down everyone understood they might not suffice to save Thunder from such a drop. "We've got movement inside the building," the reporter declared, breaking the tense silence. "It appears someone is approaching the window nearest to the platform." All eyes shifted to the 30th floor, where a small figure emerged at the window, just a few feet from the dangling platform. Is that a child?" Chief Davis looked on in disbelief as Anna and Tom rushed back outside, having come up empty in their search for Jane. Horror washed over Anna's face as she screamed, "Oh my God, that's our daughter!" The crowd collectively gasped as a small window creaked open, revealing Jane's face. Instead of looking down at the crowd, she gazed over at Thunder, who had turned his head toward her. His ears perked up despite the precarious situation. "How did she get in there?" the building manager exclaimed. "That section is meant to be secure." "She was aware of the maintenance door," Tom said, his voice echoing with dread. "And now she's going to attempt to rescue that dog." Chief Davis seized her radio. "All units, we have a child in danger on the 30th floor, west side. I need every available firefighter to that location now." But deep down, everyone understood that the firefighters wouldn't arrive in time to save Jane. The platform jolted again, now precariously tilted at a 45 angle, as Thunder's paw began to slip. Jean Anna's scream echoed, her voice swallowed by the wind that danced between the buildings. As she stood at the window, Jane could now see Thunder clearly. The German shepherd's intelligent eyes were fixed on her, filled with pain but also with a spark of hope. The platform he was hanging from was just beyond her reach, about 3 feet away and slightly below the window behind her. Jane heard the relentless pounding on the door she had just entered, adult voices calling her name, but she understood they wouldn't arrive in time to save Thunder. "It's okay," she murmured softly to the dog. "I can hear you. I'm here to help." For a moment, it felt as if the entire city paused, captivated by the extraordinary scene unfolding 30 stories above the street. A tiny 5-year-old girl and a desperate German shepherd were both in peril, bound by an unspoken connection. Thunder's paw edged closer to the brink. Time was slipping away. The cramped, dusty maintenance room Jane had entered was cluttered with cleaning supplies and equipment for the window washing platforms. Through the narrow window, she felt the cool rush of air from such a height. Thunder's gaze remained fixed on hers, as if he understood that she was his only chance. I'm going to help you, Jane whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. I know you're scared. The next event left the audience below in utter disbelief. Jane started speaking to the dog, not in the usual playful manner, but in soft, measured tones, as if engaged in a serious dialogue. Even more astonishing was how the dog reacted. Its frantic movements eased, and its gaze remained fixed on the little girl. She's connecting with it in some way, the reporter remarked into her microphone, disbelief clear in her voice. The dog appears to be responding to her. Anna gripped Tom's arm with such intensity that her knuckles turned pale. How is she doing that, Tom? She's going to fall. Chief Davis was working closely with her team, urgently seeking the quickest path to reach Jane. We need to get up there now. That window isn't meant for emergency access, she insisted. Jane leaned farther out of the window, her gaze fixed on the distance between her and Thunder. The platform had shifted again, making it impossible for her to reach the dog without stepping away from the relative safety of the maintenance room. He belongs to Walter, Jane called down to no one in particular, her voice swept away by the wind. He needs his heart medicine. That's why Thunder escaped to find help. Walter Hayes gazed up in disbelief from his wheelchair. I left my heart medication at home when the ambulance arrived yesterday. How could she possibly know that? Officer Rodriguez knelt beside the elderly man. Sir, is that true about your medication? Walter nodded, his eyes wide. Yes, I have a prescription I need to take twice daily. The hospital has been giving me doses, but Thunder was there when I had my heart attack last year. He barked until neighbors came to help. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. How could a 5-year-old girl know such specific details inside the maintenance room? Jean rummaged through the equipment and discovered a coil of thin rope, perfect for securing tools. With small, determined hands, she tied one end around the sturdy metal pipe that ran along the wall. Please, baby, don't do anything dangerous, Anna shouted from below, fully aware her daughter couldn't hear her. The firefighters are coming, yet Jane appeared to be in tune with a frequency all her own, propelled by an inner compass that only she could decipher. She secured the other end of the rope around her waist, fashioning a rudimentary safety line. The knots she fashioned were unexpectedly intricate for someone so young. How did she acquire such knot-tying skills? Tom inquired, confusion evident as Anna shook her head, tears cascading down her cheeks. I don't know, I never taught her that. Beyond the glass, Jane summoned the storm once more. I'm here to assist you, so there's no need to worry. The crowd below collectively held their breath as Jane carefully climbed onto the window ledge. The maintenance window was small, but just large enough for her tiny frame to slip through. With the rope secured around her waist, she began to edge out onto the narrow ledge that ran alongside the building. No, Anna screamed, burying her face in Tom's chest. He held her tightly, his own face a mask of terror. God help her, Chief Davis whispered, her professional detachment momentarily cracking. Jane moved with unexpected grace, her small feet carefully finding purchase on the ledge. The wind whipped her hair around her face, but her expression remained focused and determined as she inched closer to the dangling platform, the rope trailing behind her. Inside the building, firefighters had finally reached the maintenance area door, only to find it locked from the inside. Break it down, came the order, and they began ramming the heavy door. They won't reach her in time, the building manager said, his face ashen on the ledge. Jane stood at the nearest point to Thunder, with a minimum of 2 feet of open air between them. The platform creaked as the final cable strained under pressure. Leap to me, Jane shouted to Thunder. I know you can do it, the crowd gasped. Was she expecting the dog to leap to the ledge? Thunder whimpered, his back leg scrabbling uselessly against the tilted platform. Your person needs you. Jane's voice managed to cut through the height and wind with surprising clarity. Walter requires your courage. At the mention of his owner's name, Thunder's ears perked up once more, his keen eyes appearing to gauge the distance. She's attempting to get the dog to leap to her, the reporter conveyed to her audience. but the gap appears too vast. And if either of them were to fall from this height, she didn't need to complete the thought. It was clear to everyone what the outcome would be. Walter Hayes fought to rise from his wheelchair, dismissing the concerns of his hospital attendant. "Thunder," he called out, summoning every ounce of strength from his frail body. "Good boy, you can do it." Whether Thunder heeded his master's call or reacted to some silent cue from Jane, the German shepherd suddenly tensed, summoning the last vestiges of strength from his weary muscles in a moment that would later be broadcast on news channels nationwide. With a powerful push from his hind legs, Thunder launched himself from the collapsing platform, soaring toward the ledge. The moment he departed, the platform broke free entirely, plummeting to the ground like a lethal projectile. People scattered in a frantic dash for safety as the metal structure crashed into the designated area. Yet all attention remained fixed on Thunder, whose impressive leap had propelled him forward. He reached just far enough to grasp the edge of the ledge with his front paws, while his back legs dangled over 30 stories of empty air, scrabbling desperately for a foothold. Jean reached out, grasping the scruff of his neck with both hands. "I've got you," she cried, but the weight of the large dog was pulling her toward the edge as well. The safety rope went taut, the only thing keeping both of them from falling. Yet Jane was small, and Thunder was heavy. Her fingers began to slip from his fur. At that moment, the maintenance room door finally gave way. A firefighter burst through, assessing the situation with a trained eye. "Hold on, kid," he shouted, diving for the rope and grabbing it just as Jane's grip on Thunder failed. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Thunder began to fall, his eyes still locked with Jane's in a moment of shared understanding. But instead of screaming, Jane calmly said 3 words. "People will help." As Thunder rumbled, an extraordinary scene unfolded below. The crowd, which had scattered to evade the descending platform, surged back together with a shared determination. People seized whatever they could: jackets, tablecloths from a nearby cafe, canvas bags, and formed a makeshift safety net, holding it taut between them. "Everyone together," Officer Rodriguez shouted, rallying the effort. "Spread out, make it tight." Thunder plummeted from 30 stories, his shadow expanding against the azure expanse. The makeshift net groaned under his weight, yet astonishingly, it endured. Onlookers faltered but maintained their hold, collectively absorbing the shock. A cheer erupted as Thunder was carefully lowered to the earth, dazed yet unharmed. Veterinarians, having swiftly arrived, hurried to assess him for any injuries. "He's alive," the reporter declared into her microphone. "The dog has endured the fall, all thanks to the swift actions of these courageous individuals." Walter Hayes sank back into his wheelchair, overwhelmed with emotion. "Thank God," he wept, "thank God." Yet the tension lingered as all gazes shifted once more to the 30th floor, where the firefighter was meticulously bringing Jane back inside. Moments later, a wave of relief cascaded through the crowd as Jane emerged at the building's main entrance, cradled in the firefighter's arms. Anna and Tom hurried forward, wrapping their daughter in a frantic embrace. "What were you thinking?" Anna wept, her lips brushing against her daughter's face as she anxiously searched for any signs of harm. "You might have faced a fatal outcome." "I needed to assist Thunder," Jane stated plainly. "He guided me." The firefighter, who had rescued her, shook his head in disbelief. "Into decades of experience, I've never encountered anything quite like it. That little girl possesses nerves of steel." The crowd continued to murmur about the extraordinary rescue when another scene drew their focus. The veterinarian, inspecting Thunder, glanced up with a look of confusion. "This is unusual," she remarked. "Aside from some mild dehydration and a strained paw, this dog is perfectly fine. No injuries consistent with the fall. The net must have worked better than we thought," someone suggested. "No," the vet replied, shaking her head. "Even with the net, there should be signs of trauma. It's as if he floated down." Jean, still enveloped in her parents' embrace, smiled enigmatically as Walter Hayes was brought over to be reunited with his dog. Thunder, despite his injuries, perked up, straining toward his owner. The old man leaned down from his wheelchair, burying his face in Thunder's fur. "Thank you," he said, tears in his eyes as he looked up at Jean. "But how did you know about my medication? How did you know his original name?" Jane shrugged and Thunder rumbled as he shared images that danced in my mind. The adults exchanged uncertain glances, struggling to grasp the meaning behind his words, yet Walter nodded knowingly, as if it all clicked into place. "My late wife used to say animals speak to those pure enough to listen," he murmured. "She believed she could understand them as well, though I always thought it was simply her kind heart." The following day, Jane's tale graced the front page of every newspaper and led every news broadcast. A true miracle on the 30th floor. The remarkable rescue of a 5-year-old girl captured the headlines. Anna and Tom were inundated with interview requests as everyone sought to learn more about their remarkable daughter. Scientists aimed to study her, skeptics wished to disprove her, and believers were eager to honor her. Yet for Jean, life remained unchanged. The only notable shift was that people began bringing their pets to the Parkers' apartment building, hoping she might engage with them as well. A week after the rescue, Anna sat Jane down for an earnest discussion. "Darling, I have something significant to discuss with you, and I hope you can be honest with me." Jane glanced up from her drawing, a surprisingly detailed sketch of Thunder and Walter reunited. "How long have you been able to communicate with animals?" Jane pondered the question with a depth that belied her youth. "I don't know, Mommy. I think Grandma always said it was a special gift, and that I should be careful who I tell." A shiver coursed through Anna. Her mother had died when Jane was only 2, and they had never broached such a topic, at least, not that Anna was aware of. "What else did Grandma tell you?" she asked. "That some people wouldn't understand, that they might fear things they can't explain." Jean returned to her drawing, meticulously adding intricate details to Thunder's fur. She remarked that the animals would reveal to her who was in need of assistance. Tom, having been eavesdropping from the doorway, stepped into the room to join them. "Jean, what do you actually perceive from the animals? Is it akin to conversation?" Jean shook her head, not using words but rather feelings and images. Sometimes they were memories. She looked up at her father with earnest eyes, reminiscent of when Thunder revealed to her the moment Walter's heart stopped, and how he barked until the neighbors arrived, or how he recalled the secret maintenance door from observing the cleaning staff use it. Anna and Tom shared a fleeting look. The incident had sparked a multitude of questions, ones they weren't certain they wished to explore. "Am I in trouble?" Jean inquired, observing their solemn faces. "No, sweetheart," Anna interjected swiftly. "What you did was incredibly dangerous. Yes, but brave. We're just trying to comprehend." "You see, Jane," Tom said softly, "what you can do is something that most people can't. It truly makes you unique." Jane nodded solemnly. "I know," she said. "Thunder told me there aren't many people who can hear them. That's why he was so scared when he saw me. He didn't think anyone would understand what he was trying to do." Later that evening, after Jane had gone to bed, Anna and Tom sat in their living room, trying to process everything that had happened. "My mother used to say she could sense when our old cat was sick before any symptoms showed," Anna said quietly. "I always thought she was just being overly attached to the pet." "Do you think this is genetic?" Tom asked, struggling with the concept. Anna shrugged helplessly. "I don't know what to think anymore. But you saw what happened out there." Jane possessed insights that seemed beyond her reach. Their exchange was suddenly halted by a knock at the door. Tom swung it open to reveal Walter Hayes, who appeared significantly better than the last time they had encountered him. Thunder sat quietly beside him, his injured paw wrapped in a bandage, yet he seemed otherwise healthy and attentive. "I apologize for the interruption," Walter said, but Thunder was adamant about coming here. "He's been uneasy all day, tugging toward your building whenever we step outside, as if he knew." At that moment, Thunder's ears perked up, and his eyes locked onto something behind Tom. Jean, still in her pajamas and fighting off sleep, lingered in the hallway. "Thank you," she murmured, rubbing her eyes. "And goodbye." Anna appeared at the door, curious. "Are you going somewhere, Mr. Hayes?" Walter nodded. "My daughter has persuaded me to relocate to her home in the countryside. After everything that has transpired, I believe we could both benefit from the fresh air and expansive landscapes." He gazed down affectionately at Thunder, noticing the reduced number of skyscrapers around them. Thunder moved ahead, softly nudging Jane's hand with his nose. She knelt, embracing his neck, and murmuring something only he could hear. The dog licked her cheek once before returning to Walter's side. "What did you say to him?" Walter inquired with interest. "And I advised him to look after you," Jean responded, adding that I would be there to listen if he ever wanted to chat again. Walter's eyes shimmered with emotion as he spoke to Anna and Tom. "Your daughter possesses an extraordinary talent. In my culture, we hold that such children are favored by spirits." They traversed the rooms. After Walter and Thunder departed, Anna gently settled Jane back into bed. "What was it like?" she inquired softly. "Being out there on that ledge so elevated?" Jane yawned. "I wasn't scared, Mommy. Thunder was with me. He told me I was brave." "You were very brave," Anna agreed, smoothing her daughter's hair. "But please don't ever do something like that again without telling us." "I promise," Jane murmured, her voice trailing off as she began to drift back into slumber. "Unless another animal truly needs assistance." Anna pressed her lips to Jane's forehead, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, pride and fear intertwined for the remarkable child she had nurtured. As she flicked off the light, her gaze fell upon a small carved wooden dog on the nightstand, an unexpected presence. "Where did this come from?" she murmured. "Mr. Walter gave it to me," Jean replied, her voice heavy with sleep. "It belonged to his wife." She could hear the animals too. As Anna closed the bedroom door, she felt an undeniable sense that this was merely the start of an extraordinary journey for her daughter. The world appeared transformed, brimming with whispers and connections that remained unseen by most, yet were vividly clear to one remarkable little girl. Have you ever encountered someone with a unique gift? Share your experience in the comments. 3 months after the dramatic rescue, life for the Parker family had transformed in subtle yet significant ways. Jean's story had gone viral, attracting a level of attention the family had not anticipated. News vans had eventually ceased their constant presence outside their apartment building, and the barrage of interview requests had dwindled to a mere trickle. However, people still recognized Jean on the street, pointing and whispering, "There's the animal whisperer girl," or "That's the skyscraper hero." Anna had resumed her nursing role at the hospital, yet her colleagues regarded her with a new lens, probing her with questions about Jean that left Anna at a loss for words. Tom found himself navigating a sea of inquiries from his fellow construction workers, all curious about the rescue that had made headlines. For Jean, the most significant transformation was her newfound openness regarding her unique ability. Prior to the incident with Thunder, she had kept her animal communications largely to herself, instinctively aware that others might perceive it as peculiar. Now, with her parents' cautious support, she felt emboldened to share more about the messages she received from the animals. One crisp Saturday morning, as Anna prepared breakfast, she caught sight of Jane by the apartment window, her gaze fixed intently on something outside. "What captures your attention, darling?" Anna inquired. A hint of concern laced her voice. Ever since the skyscraper incident, whenever Jane lingered too long by a window, Anna felt her heart race. "The birds are talking about a storm coming," Jane stated with a calm certainty. "They're gathering extra food." Anna looked up at the clear blue sky. The weather forecast had said nothing about a storm. Jane shrugged, turning away from the window. "The birds know. They always know first." Tom entered the kitchen, catching the tail end of the conversation. "What do the birds know?" he asked. "Apparently, there's a storm coming," Anna replied, exchanging a look with her husband. They had agreed to support Jane's gift, but sometimes it was hard to know how seriously to take her animal-inspired predictions. "I'll toss an umbrella in the car just in case," Tom said, affectionately tussling Jane's hair. "We should head out soon if we want to reach the new apartment on time." The Parkers had made the decision to shift away from the relentless gaze of the media and the prying eyes of curious strangers. They yearned for a fresh start in a place that offered more space and privacy. Today, they were on their way to explore a potential new home nestled in a quieter neighborhood on the city's outskirts. Jean sat quietly in her car seat, observing as the bustling urban landscape slowly transformed into serene residential streets lined with trees and quaint yards. Her gaze seemed to follow something invisible to her parents, perhaps birds flitting by or the occasional dog being walked along the sidewalk. "You okay back there, princess?" Tom asked, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Jean nodded. "The animals here are different. They're not as loud or frightened." Anna turned in her seat to gaze at her daughter. "What do you mean by loud in our apartment?" "The animals are always making a racket," Jean explained. "There are too many people, too much noise, and not enough trees. They're much calmer there." Tom brought the car to a stop in front of a quaint two-story house, its small yet tidy front yard inviting. "This is it," he declared. "What do you think?" Jane pressed her face against the window, absorbing the view of the property. A smile spread across her face. "There's a rabbit family living under that bush," she said, pointing. "They say no cats live in this house." "That's good." The property consultant, Ms. Rivera, stood on the front porch, her warm smile welcoming them as they approached. Having been informed by Anna about Jane's special sensitivity, she knelt slightly to connect with the child at eye level. "Hello, Jean," she said gently. "I've heard so much about you. Would you like to explore the backyard while I show your parents around the inside of the house?" Jane glanced at her mother for approval, and upon receiving a nod, she joyfully bounded toward the gate that opened to the backyard. "Just stay where we can see you," Anna called after her, while Ms. Rivera guided them through the house, detailing its features and history. Anna frequently looked out the windows to keep an eye on Jane, her daughter, who was meandering through the modestly sized yard. She would occasionally pause to inspect something in the grass or gaze up at the trees. The previous owners had been an elderly couple. Ms. Rivera mentioned that they maintained the property in excellent condition but chose to downsize after their children relocated out of state. "It appears to be an ideal fit for us," Tom remarked with appreciation about the sturdy build. There was ample room, yet not overwhelming enough to require extensive upkeep. A sudden clap of thunder cut through their discussion, causing everyone to glance toward the windows in astonishment. "That's odd," Ms. Rivera remarked, her brow furrowing as she gazed at the ominous sky. The forecast was clear all day. Anna and Tom shared a glance, recalling Jane's earlier remark about the birds foretelling a storm. "We should bring Jane inside," Anna suggested. However, when they glanced out at the backyard, Jane was nowhere in sight. "Jane," Tom called, sliding open the back door and stepping onto the patio. "Jane, where are you?" The backyard lay still, a swing set in the corner swaying gently in the rising wind. Rain began to fall, light at first, but soon it intensified. "She must have gone around the side of the house," Anna proposed, striving to keep the tremor from her voice. "Jane," she called out. They divided their search, with Tom inspecting one side of the house while Anna took the other. Ms. Rivera remained by the back door, ready for Jane's return. Anna turned the corner of the house, her shoes already drenched from the unexpected rain. "Jane," she called once more. A neighbor, busy in his garage, glanced up and asked, "Are you looking for a little girl?" Anna nodded vigorously. "My daughter, she was just in the backyard." The man gestured down the street. "I saw a kid heading that way a few minutes ago. He seemed to be in a hurry." "Thank you," Anna exclaimed, already sprinting toward the direction he had pointed out to Tom. "This way," she shouted. Tom joined her, and together they jogged down the tree-lined street, calling out for Jane. The rain poured down in sheets, reducing visibility and soaking them to the skin. There, Tom suddenly pointed, about half a block ahead. A small figure in a yellow raincoat, which Anna belatedly realized Jean hadn't been wearing when they arrived, was walking purposefully toward what appeared to be a park or wooded area at the end of the street. "Jean!" Amidst the pouring rain, Anna's voice pierced through the downpour. "Jean, stop!" It seems that either Jane was oblivious to their words or she deliberately decided to overlook them. She pressed on, vanishing into the trees just as Anna and Tom arrived at the park entrance. The area was more untamed than it had seemed from Aphrolis, a manicured park, and more a small forest preserve, with trails meandering through thick foliage. Jean had vanished from sight. Which direction did she take? Tom panted, struggling to catch his breath as the rain poured down, obscuring the muddy paths ahead. Anna was on the verge of suggesting they split up again when a faint sound caught their attention, not Jean's voice, but the unmistakable bark of a dog echoing from deeper in the woods. "That way," Anna said, pointing toward the sound. They followed the winding path between towering oaks and maples, the leaves offering scant protection from the relentless rain. The barking grew louder, more urgent. Finally, they rounded a bend and spotted Jane kneeling beside a large oak tree, leaning over to reach into what seemed to be a hollow at the base of the trunk. The yellow raincoat she wore was several sizes too big, clearly not hers. "Jean!" Anna called, relief flooding her voice. Jean looked up, her face lighting up with a smile at the sight of her parents. "I discovered them, Mommy," she shouted back, just as the big dog predicted I would. Tom and Anna shared puzzled looks as they neared their daughter. "What big dog?" Tom inquired. "Jean, what made you run off like that? You frightened us half to death." Jean gestured towards her large raincoat. "The man with the sorrowful eyes had offered me his coat while he searched for his dog. She had just given birth and had become frightened by the storm." Anna knelt next to her daughter, gently pushing back the hood of the raincoat to see her clearly. "What man, sweetheart, did you talk to?" "A stranger." The thought sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the rain. "He was nice," Jane insisted. "He was worried about Daisy Thatcher." She gestured toward the hollow of the tree, and Anna and Tom leaned in to catch a glimpse of a disheveled border collie, nestled closely around a litter of tiny puppies, mere days old. "She ran away when the storm began," Jane clarified. "Dogs can be frightened by thunder, even mother dogs. She discovered this tree to shelter her little ones from the rain." The border collie whimpered softly, refraining from growling or displaying any signs of aggression. If anything, she appeared relieved to have been found. "Jean, you can't just run off like that," Anna said, her tone softening at the sight of the dog and her puppies. "You have to tell us where you're going." "There wasn't time," Jean said plainly. "The man was crying. He feared Daisy and her babies might perish in the storm." Tom glanced around, a sense of unease washing over him. "Where is this man now?" As if in response to his inquiry, they heard a voice calling from further down the path, "Daisy, where are you, girl?" Moments later, a man in his 40s emerged around the bend, drenched and without a jacket or raincoat, his thinning hair clinging to his scalp. His eyes widened as he spotted the group gathered around the tree. "You found her," he exclaimed, rushing forward. "Oh, thank goodness." The border collie's tail started to wag as her owner drew near. He knelt beside the tree, tears blending with the rain on his face. "She's been missing since last night," he said, gently stroking Daisy's head. "She was about to have her pups, and then the storm came earlier than expected. I've been searching for hours." He gazed at Jane, a blend of bewilderment and appreciation in his eyes. "How did you know where to find her?" Jane offered him the same straightforward gaze she'd directed at numerous adults who posed similar inquiries. Daisy expressed her concern about her little ones getting wet. The man fixed his gaze on her for a moment before his eyes fell to the yellow raincoat she wore. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. "You're the little girl from the skyscraper, the one who saved that German shepherd." He turned to Anna and Tom. I gave her my coat when I saw her walking in the rain. I didn't realize she was alone. She said she was looking for my dog, that she could find her." He shook his head in amazement. "I thought she was just being kind, but then she walked straight here like she knew exactly where to go." "She does that," Tom said with a sigh, helping Jane to her feet. "We're sorry if she bothered you." "Bothered me?" The man laughed incredulously. "She just saved my dog and her puppies. I'm Jake Harrison, by the way. I live in the Boo House at the corner. Tom Parker." Tom responded while shaking Jake's hand. "This is my wife, Anna, and our daughter, Jane, though it appears you've already been introduced." Jake nodded, still gazing at Jane with a sense of awe. "We need to get Daisy and her puppies somewhere warm and dry. My place is closest, if you don't mind helping." Together, they carefully lifted the border collie and her puppies, using Tom's jacket as a makeshift carrier. The small procession made its way back through the woods, the storm beginning to ease as suddenly as it had arrived. Jake's house was cozy, cluttered with dog toys scattered across the living room, and framed photos of Daisy adorning the walls. He led them to a laundry room where a large dog bed was prepared with soft blankets. "I set this up for her before she went missing," he explained as they gently placed Daisy and her puppies on the bed. "I knew she'd be having the pups soon, but she got spooked by the pre-storm pressure and bolted while I was at work." While Jake dried Daisy with a towel and checked the puppies for any signs of distress, Anna took the chance to engage in a serious discussion with Jane in the hallway. "You can't just wander off like that," she said, keeping her voice low but firm. "I understand you wanted to help, but you scared us, Jane. Anything could have happened to you." Jane looked down at her shoes. "I'm sorry, Mommy, but the puppies needed help, and Jake was so sad." "How did you even know about Daisy?" Tom asked. "Did you hear her from the house we were visiting?" Jane shook her head. "No, the rabbits told me about a lost dog with babies. They said the man with the sad eyes had been looking for her all night. Then I saw Jake when I went to look, and he needed help." Anna and Tom exchanged desperate looks, pondering how to convey the idea of stranger danger to a child who appeared to possess an extraordinary knack for identifying those in need of assistance. Jake stood in the doorway, his expression a blend of relief and joy. "The vet's on her way," he announced, "and she believes they'll all be fine. According to my description, 5 vibrant puppies." He knelt down to Jane's level. "I don't know how you knew where to find her, but you saved their lives today." "Thank you," Jane smiled. Daisy expressed her gratitude, fearing that you might be upset with her for fleeing. Jake's eyes widened for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "I could never be upset with her. I was just concerned." He then stood and turned to Anna and Tom. "Please allow me to prepare some hot chocolate or coffee for everyone. It's the least I can do after you got drenched helping me while Jake occupied himself in the kitchen." Tom pulled Anna aside. "So much for a quiet, normal house viewing," he whispered. Anna sighed. "At least the real estate agent got to see what she's dealing with right away." She cast a quick look at Jean, who was sneaking a peek into the laundry room to see how Daisy was doing. "Do you think we'll ever experience a normal day again?" "Probably not," Tom replied, a hint of pride coloring his tone. "Our daughter is remarkable. We simply need to find a way to ensure her safety as he dedicates herself to rescuing one animal at a time." The vet arrived soon after, having confirmed that Daisy and her puppies were healthy despite their recent adventure. As she examined them, she engaged in conversation with Jake about the proper care for newborn puppies. "You'll need to monitor them closely for the first few weeks," she advised. "Make sure Daisy is eating enough to maintain her milk production, and watch for any signs of distress in the puppies." Jake nodded with a sense of gravity, mentally cataloging the details as the vet gathered her tools. He stole a glance at the Parkers, who were getting ready to depart now that the emergency had passed. "Wait," he interjected abruptly. "You were checking out the Morgan place down the street, right? The house that's for sale?" Anna nodded. "Yes, We were in the midst of a viewing when Jane vanished. Jake appeared to ponder for a moment before responding. It's a wonderful neighborhood with plenty of families and children, excellent schools. He paused, then added, the residents generally keep to themselves. They're amicable but not intrusive. Tom grasped the subtle hit Jake was making. That would certainly be a refreshing shift. We've encountered a few hurdles regarding privacy since Jane's narrative became known, I can envision, Jake remarked, gazing at Jane with a fresh sense of admiration. If you choose to move here, you'll have at least one neighbor who gets what you're going through. He smiled, and I have a feeling Daisy would love to see more of her rescuer after saying their goodbyes, and promising to let Jake know their decision about the house. The Parkers headed back to the car. Ms. Rivera was still waiting, having taken shelter in her own vehicle during the worst of the storm. I'm so sorry about all this, Anna began, but the real estate agent waved her apology away. Are you kidding? This is the most exciting house showing I've ever had. She smiled at Jane. Your mom told me you were special, but I had no idea. As they drove home, the skies clearing as suddenly as they had darkened. Anna reflected on the day's events. Part of her was still frightened by how easily Jane had wandered off, how confidently she had followed her instincts without considering the dangers, but another part couldn't help but feel amazed at what her daughter had accomplished, finding a missing dog and her newborn puppies in the middle of a storm, guided by nothing more than her mysterious connection to animals. I think we should take the house. Tom suddenly broke the silence, saying it felt right, didn't it? And that neighbor Jake, he seemed like he truly understood. Anna turned to glance at Jane, who had drifted off in her car seat, worn out from the day's adventures. What do you think, Jane? She inquired gently, not really expecting a response from her slumbering child. Would you like to live there? To her surprise, Jane's eyes fluttered open. The rabbit said, it's a good place, she mumbled sleepily. And now Daisy and her babies say so too. Anna met Tom's eyes, a small smile tugging at her lips. Well, if the rabbits and Daisy approve, who are we to argue? 2 weeks later, the Parkers settled into their new home. The act of packing up their apartment was a bittersweet affair. They were departing from the only home Jane had ever known, yet they eagerly anticipated a fresh start, free from the relentless scrutiny. As they transported boxes from the moving truck to the house, Jake emerged with a basket of muffins and a thermos of coffee. Welcome to the neighborhood, he said with a cheerful smile. Need an extra pair of hands? Tom gratefully accepted both the refreshments and the offer of help as Jake picked up a box labeled kitchen. He lowered his voice. By the way, I haven't told anyone about Jane's special talent. I figure that's your story to share if and when you want to. Thanks, Tom said, genuinely moved by the man's thoughtfulness. We appreciate that. As Anna organized boxes in the living room, she glanced out the window to see Jean wandering through the backyard. Her daughter moved with intention, pausing at certain spots, as if acknowledging unseen inhabitants, perhaps the rabbit family nestled beneath the bush, or other creatures that remained hidden from Anna's view. Lost in a moment of quiet observation, Anna was captivated by the seemingly mundane scene of a little girl playing in her new backyard. Yet she recognized the remarkable essence hidden within it. Jane was engaging with a realm that coexisted with their own yet remained out of reach for the majority. Anna recalled Walter Hay's words from months ago, in my culture, we believe such children are blessed by spirits. They walk between worlds. At the time, she had tucked that thought away as a pleasant notion. Now, as she watched Jane kneel to inspect something in the grass, her small hand reaching out as if to greet it, Anna began to wonder if the old man had been right after all. Her daughter seemed to traverse realms, hearing voices that others could not, perceiving connections invisible to most. It was a gift, yet also a weighty responsibility, and that Anna and Tom were still learning to navigate as parents. Hey, Tom said, approaching from behind and wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? Anna reclined against him, her gaze fixed on Jane. It's clear that our lives will never return to normal, will they? Tom chuckled softly, Probably not, but normal is overrated anyway. As they watched a butterfly land on Jane's outstretched finger, she held perfectly still, her face a picture of delight as the delicate creature opened and closed its wings. No, Anna agreed, smiling despite her concerns. Normal is definitely overrated. Have you ever moved to a new place because of something unexpected? What happened that made you change your life? 6 months had gone by since the Parkers settled into their new abode. The neighborhood had turned out to be just as they had envisioned it, welcoming yet mindful of their space. The sensational tale of the girl who saved the German Shepherd had slowly receded from the public's consciousness, enabling the family to cultivate a more ordinary rhythm in their lives. Jane had begun her journey in kindergarten at the local elementary school, where she was forging friendships and adapting well. Despite the occasional peculiarities involving the class hamster whispering secrets to her or her remarkable knack for soothing restless pets during the school's animal education days, her teacher, Miss Winters, had shown understanding after a brief, discreet chat with Anna regarding Jane's extraordinary sensitivity. It was a crisp autumn Saturday when the phone call arrived, poised to once again test the Parkers' pursuit of a normal life. Anna was raking leaves in the front yard while Tom and Jane crafted a birdhouse in the garage when her cell phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but chose to answer anyway. "Hello, Mrs. Parker, this is Dr. Linda Chen from City General Hospital." The woman's voice conveyed professionalism with a touch of warmth. "I'm reaching out concerning a patient of mine, Walter Hayes." Anna's rake halted mid-stroke as Walter Hayes, the owner of Thunder, the German Shepherd that Jane had helped rescue nearly a year ago, approached. They hadn't heard from him since he had moved to his daughter's place in the countryside. "Is everything all right?" Anna inquired, a hint of worry lacing her tone. There was a slight hesitation on the other end. "Mr. Hayes has been admitted with complications from his heart condition. His prognosis is..." Dr. Chen paused, seemingly selecting her words with caution. "It's not looking good. I'm concerned that he's been inquiring about Jane." Anna looked toward the garage, where her daughter's laughter intertwined with Tom's deeper voice. "I see," she said softly. "How did you find us?" "We've moved since Mr. Hayes's daughter tracked you down through the news stories." Dr. Chen explained that he understands this is an unusual request, but he's quite insistent. He says Jane would want to see Thunder one last time. Anna felt a heavy weight in her chest. The implication was unmistakable. Walter Hayes was bracing for the conclusion, attempting to arrange his matters. "Of course," he replied. "We can come tomorrow morning if that suits you." "That would be perfect," Dr. Chen replied, the relief evident in her voice. "And Mrs. Parker?" He mentioned something about Jane having a special way with animals. I wasn't entirely sure what he was getting at, but he appeared to believe it held significance. "Yes," Anna replied matter-of-factly, "she does." After ending the call, Anna stood still in the yard, the rake slipping from her fingers. How would she convey this to Jane? Her daughter grasped the concept of death more profoundly than many children her age, a natural outcome of her bond with animals that had fleeting lifespans. She spoke openly about these topics, yet this situation felt distinct. This was a person she recognized, someone she had actively assisted. Tom observed her expression as she stepped into the garage. He set down his hammer and leaned in, whispering, "Everything okay?" Anna gave a subtle shake of her head and silently whispered later. That evening, after Jane had settled into bed, Anna leaned closer to Tom at the kitchen table, speaking in soft whispers. "Do you think we should take her?" Tom asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "It could be quite distressing." Anna cradled her mug of tea between her palms. "I believe we must. Walter specifically requested her, and I can't recall a time when Jane has ever hesitated to assist anyone in need, be it a person or an animal." Tom nodded slowly. "You're right," he said. "And Thunder will be there. She'd never forgive us if we kept her from saying goodbye." The next morning they explained to Jane where they were going. To their surprise, She didn't seem shocked or upset by the news. "I know," she said, pulling on her favorite sweater. "Thunder told me last night in my dream. He said his person is very tired and needs to go to sleep soon. But he's worried about what will happen to Thunder." Anna and Tom shared a knowing look after all this time. Jean's straightforward remarks about her ability to communicate with animals still surprised them. "And how do you feel about that, sweetheart?" Anna inquired softly. Jean pondered the question while tying her shoes. "It's sad, but Thunder says it's like when the leaves fall from the trees. They must fall so new ones can grow in spring. Mr. Walter is like an old leaf." During the ride to the hospital, Jane remained silent in the back seat, her gaze fixed on the autumn scenery that rushed by the window. Every so often, she would gesture towards animals that piqued her interest. A red-tailed hawk glides gracefully above a sprawling field, while a fox stealthily slips into the underbrush. In the distance, a herd of deer grazes peacefully in a serene meadow, all observed from the confines of the hospital. Dr. Chen greeted them in the lobby, appearing younger than Anna had anticipated, with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor. "Thank you for coming," she said, shaking their hands. She knelt to Jane's level and said, "You must be the famous Jane. Mr. Hayes has told me all about how brave you are." Jane nodded solemnly. "Is Thunder here?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Yes, he's in the garden with Mr. Hayes's daughter Patricia. It's a special arrangement. We don't usually allow pets, but given the circumstances." She stood and addressed Anna and Tom. "I should prepare you. Mr. Hayes has declined rapidly in the past 24 hours. He's on comfort measures only now." "We understand," Tom said, taking Anna's hand and squeezing it gently. Dr. Chen led them through the hospital corridors to a small garden courtyard. Enclosed by the building on all sides, benches and planters created a peaceful oasis in the midst of the clinical environment. Seated on one of the benches was a middle-aged woman, with Walter's same gentle eyes beside her. Thunder lay at attention, his gaze fixed on the hospital doors, as if waiting for someone. The moment Jane stepped into the garden, Thunder's ears perked up. He rose to his feet, his tail wagging hesitantly. "Thunder," Jane called, breaking free from her parents to run to the German Shepherd. Thunder met her halfway, his entire body wiggling with excitement. He licked her face as she threw her arms around his neck in a tight embrace. Patricia Hayes observed with a blend of wonder and feeling. "He's been so listless these past few days," she remarked as Anna and Tom drew near. "This is the most animated I've seen him." Anna introduced herself and Tom. "We're so sorry about your father." Patricia nodded, brushing away a tear. "Thank you for coming. It meant so much to him to see your daughter again. He's been talking about her nonstop since his condition worsened, about how she saved Thunder, how she knew things she couldn't possibly know." She hesitated. "I thought it was the medication making him confused," but seeing Thunder's reaction to her just now, they watched as Jane knelt beside Thunder, her small hands gently stroking his fur while she whispered in his ear. The dog listened with unusual intensity, occasionally nudging her with his nose or licking her cheek. "She's telling him that it's okay to be sad," a fragile voice said from behind them. They turned to see Walter Hayes being wheeled into the garden by a nurse. He was much thinner than when they'd last seen him, his skin pallid and his breathing labored, but his eyes lit up at the sight of Jane and Thunder together. "Dad, you should be resting," Patricia said, hurrying to his side. "I'll rest soon enough," Walter replied with a weak smile, "but first I need to speak with Jane." At the sound of his voice, both Thunder and Jane looked up. The German Shepherd immediately went to his master, resting his head on Walter's knee. Jane followed, standing respectfully beside the wheelchair. "Hello, Mr. Walter," she said. "Thunder says you've been very brave." Walter's eyes filled with tears. "Not as brave as him or you." He reached out a trembling hand to stroke Thunder's head. "I need to ask you something important." Jane nodded, her expression grave and wise beyond her years. "Thunder is going to need a new home soon." Walter spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Patricia can't keep him because of her husband's allergies. I thought perhaps with your unique abilities, I could help find him the perfect home." Jane stated with assurance that he had already shown me Walter blinked in surprise. He did. Jane nodded. He showed me a place with lots of trees and a big yard, a place where he can help other people who are sad or sick. She looked at her parents like a helper dog for people in hospitals. Patricia gasped softly. That's exactly what Dad and I were discussing. There's a therapy dog training program at the Veterans Hospital near my home. The director is a friend of mine, and she said Thunder would be perfect for it with his temperament and intelligence. Walter shook his head in amazement. You see, she knows. She always knows. He beckoned Jane closer. There's something else I want to give you. From the pocket of his robe he withdrew a small carved wooden box, its surface worn smooth from years of handling. This belonged to my wife Caroline. She had the same gift you have, though not as strong. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with small animal charms dangling from it. She would have wanted you to have it, Dad. That was Mom's favorite. Patricia began but stopped when she saw the look of peace on her father's face. It's where it belongs now, Walter said firmly. He took the bracelet and fastened it around Jane's wrist. It was too large for her, but she looked at it with reverence. Caroline often mentioned that the bracelet aided her concentration when the cacophony of animal voices grew overwhelming. Maybe it will assist you as well someday. Jane scrutinized the delicate charms. A dog, a cat, a bird, a horse, and several more, each exquisitely detailed. Thank you, she said solemnly. I'll keep it safe. Walter nodded, satisfied. There's one more thing, he said, gesturing for Patricia to come closer. In my desk at home, top drawer, there's a manuscript. Caroline was writing a book about her experiences, her gift. She never finished it. I want Jane to have it when she's older. Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Of course, Dad. Walter leaned back in his wheelchair, suddenly looking exhausted. I think I need to rest now, he murmured as the nurse prepared to wheel him back inside. Jean stepped forward once more. Thunder wants to say something, she said. Walter paused, his eyes finding his faithful companion. Thunder placed his paws on the wheelchair armrests, bringing himself to eye level with his master. With gentle dignity, he licked Walter's cheek once, then pressed his forehead against the old man's in a gesture of profound connection. He says, "Thank you for saving him from the shelter all those years ago," Jane translated, her voice soft. He says, "You won't be alone on your journey. Caroline is waiting, and so are all the animals you've helped throughout your life." A serene expression enveloped Walter's features. "Thank you, Jane," he murmured softly, "for everything." As Walter was wheeled away, Dr. Chen approached the Parkers. "I've never seen anything quite like that," she admitted. The connection between them was remarkable. Anna gently rested her hand on Jane's shoulder, saying, "Our daughter has a special talent for offering comfort." Dr. Chen paused for a moment before passing Anna the business card. "I collaborate with a research team focused on the therapeutic benefits of animal-assisted healing. If Jean ever has an interest in contributing to our program, even in an informal capacity, I believe she could make a significant impact." Before Anna could respond, Jean looked up. "The sick children need more animal friends," she said decisively. "I can help with that." Later that evening, after they had returned home and Jane had gone to bed, still wearing the oversized silver bracelet, Anna and Tom sat in the living room, reflecting on the day's events. "Do you think we should let her get involved with Dr. Chen's program?" Anna, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, asked Tom. "What do you think?" He considered the question. It could be beneficial for her to use her gift in a structured environment, and it would help many people. He paused, contemplating. "But she's still so young." Walter's wife was writing a book about her experiences. Anna found it amusing that it might offer some insight into how to assist Jean in nurturing her talents safely, or how to shield her from those who may not comprehend. Tom noted that their conversation was disrupted by a gentle noise from the hallway. They glanced up to find Jane in the doorway, holding Thunder's wooden figure in one hand, the bracelet on her wrist catching the light. "I can't sleep," she said. "Thunder is saying goodbye to Mr. Walter." Anna extended her arms wide, inviting Jane to settle onto the couch nestled between her parents. "Is he feeling down?" Anna inquired softly. Jane shook her head. "Not quite. It was more like the sensation you get after finishing a truly captivating tale. He was eager for his next journey." Mr. Walter, Tom, and Anna exchanged knowing looks over Jane's head. At times, their daughter's observations were surprisingly profound. "Did Thunder share that with you?" Tom asked, and Jane replied thoughtfully, "I think that part came from inside me," as she touched the silver bracelet. "Or maybe from Caroline." The phone rang early the next morning. It was Patricia, calling to inform them that Walter had passed peacefully in his sleep. Thunder, who had been permitted to stay in the hospital room, howled once at the moment of his passing, then fell silent. "The strange thing is," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion, "Thunder appears troubled, as if he had anticipated this moment and found his resolution." "I believe he did know," Anna responded gently, observing Jane through the kitchen window. Jane sat cross-legged in the backyard, her eyes closed and her face turned toward the morning sun. Jane mentioned that he was bidding farewell last night after assuring her he would stay connected about Thunder's journey into the therapy dog program. Anna ended the call and went to Tom at the window. "How do we nurture a child who navigates different realms?" she inquired, reflecting on her thoughts from months past. Tom draped an arm around her shoulders. "Much like one nurtures a child blessed with an extraordinary gift, infusing love, offering guidance, and embracing the humility to acknowledge that at times she will be the one imparting wisdom to us all." Jane opened her eyes and smiled at something only she could see. The silver bracelet caught the sunlight, sending prisms of color dancing across the grass. A squirrel approached hesitantly, then with growing confidence, until it sat right beside her, apparently listening as intently as any human might. "I think Walter was right to give her that bracelet," Tom said. "She's part of a lineage of people who can hear what most of us can't, who can bridge the gap between our world and theirs." Anna nodded, observing a blue jay settle on the birdhouse they had constructed, as if participating in the dialogue between Jane and the squirrel. "I just hope we're prepared for the responsibility of guiding her. We don't have to face it by ourselves." Tom gestured toward the window, reminding her to look at all the teachers she would have in the coming weeks. Jane started visiting Dr. Chen's animal program for rehabilitation after school. She worked with even the most traumatic rescues, and her presence once a week had an almost miraculous impact, turning difficult-to-train animals into cooperative, anxious creatures that became calm. Thunder flourished in his new position as a therapy dog. His gentle disposition and intelligence made him a natural, and his tale of being saved by a child from a skyscraper gave many of the patients he saw hope. Caroline Hayes's manuscript, though incomplete, turned out to be a wealth of information. It included in-depth descriptions of her experiences communicating with animals, the methods she had devised to deal with the incessant stream of animal voices, and the difficulties she had encountered from both believers and skeptics. Anna found a particular passage particularly moving. "Those of us who hear the animals are never truly alone, but the gift can be isolating in its own way. We exist in the overlap between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. The secret is to find those rare souls who may not share our ability but who believe in it without question, who can anchor us to the human world while respecting our connection to the animal one." As winter gave way to spring, the Parker family settled into a new normal, one that embraced Jean's extraordinary gift instead of trying to hide or contain it. She became well known in the neighborhood not as the skyscraper hero but as a youngster with a unique bond with animals. When neighbors were ill or in distress, they brought their pets to her. Local veterinarians sought her advice on particularly difficult cases, and the animal therapy program thrived under her guidance. Even though Caroline's bracelet was still too big for Jane, she insisted on wearing it. "Does it help?" Anna asked her daughter as she tucked her into bed one evening. Reiterating what Walter had said months prior, Anna questioned, "With the animal voices, Jane gave a tired nod. When they all talk at once, I touch the charms and picture a big beautiful door in my mind. I can open it wide to hear everything, or just a little bit to hear only the important things. Sounds like a really helpful ability. Anna remarked that Caroline must have been extremely astute to smooth her daughter's hair. Anna halted, her hands hanging over Jane's head, saying hello, but Jane was already asleep, breathing deeply, and even the bracelet was glinting in the gentle nightlight glow. Jane agreed, her eyelids already closing. With her heart pounding, Anna backed out of the room softly. After what they had seen, did Jane truly speak with Caroline's ghost, or were their dreams only a child's attempts to conflate memory and imagination? The difference didn't seem to matter to Anna anymore. She stopped to examine a recently hung family photo in the hallway. Anna. The picture, which was taken at Thunder's graduation from the therapy dog program, featured Tom and Jane sitting proudly next to Thunder. They were all grinning broadly at the camera. But what was missing were the innumerable invisible presences that now enhanced their lives. The animals that sought my advice. The knowledge found in Caroline's writings, the recollection of Walter's generosity, and maybe even something more that went beyond the lines separating the worlds of humans and animals. Their life may never have been typical by conventional measures, but it was remarkable in every way that mattered. Do you think that certain people have unique skills or relationships to animals? Anna caressed the frame gently while grinning. What life events have led you to believe in concepts that are beyond knowledge? Over the course of 5 years, the Parker family experienced both anticipated and unexpected developments. Now 10 years old, Jane had developed into a self-assured, kind child whose unique gift had become a vital part of not only her life, but the lives of entire communities. The animal therapy program that had begun with Thunder had grown into a full-fledged healing center where people and animals assisted one another in recovering from emotional and physical traumas. Dr. Chen had obtained funds to conduct research on the quantifiable advantages of animal-assisted therapy, and Jean was a special consultant. Despite her youth, Anna had cut back on her nursing hours to accommodate Jane's increasingly hectic schedule, which included school therapy sessions, veterinary consultations, and the occasional emergency. Tom had established a small animal shelter in their backyard where injured or abandoned animals could recover under Jane's careful supervision before being returned to the wild or placed with devoted families. Thunder, now an elderly dog with distinguished gray hair on his muzzle, remained the flagship therapy dog of the program. He had helped countless veterans, children, and elderly patients over the years. Though he moved more slowly now, his intelligence and empathy seemed only to deepen with age. He visited the Parker home often, a beloved friend, and linked to the beginning of Jane's public journey. On a warm spring morning, Jane sat cross-legged in the backyard sanctuary, Caroline's bracelet, now properly sized for her wrist, glinting in the sunlight around her. An unlikely assembly of animals rested peacefully, a recuperating hawk with a splinted wing, 2 orphan fox kits sleeping in a nest box, a 3-legged rabbit nibbling contentedly on fresh greens, and Thunder, who despite his advanced age had walked all the way from the Veterans Hospital to visit Anna, watched from the kitchen window, a cup of coffee cooling in her hands. She'd grown accustomed to such scenes, but they never ceased to amaze her. The harmony between species that should have been predator and prey, the perfect stillness with which Jane sat at the center of it all. She's getting stronger, isn't she? Anna nodded as Tom approached her from behind and put his arms around her waist. The manuscript has helped Caroline's techniques for managing the voices, for focusing on one animal at a time without getting overwhelmed, Anna stated. Tom whispered softly, but it's more than that. You've noticed it too, haven't you? She's not just hearing the animals anymore. For months, Anna bit her lip, had been circling this subject. The subtle clues that Jane's abilities were growing beyond animal communication included the way plants seemed to thrive under her touch, her dreams that occasionally came true, and the occasional remark about Caroline saying or Mr. Walter, thinking that gave the impression that she was communicating with the deceased. I've noticed Anna admit that I'm not sure what it means, but their conversation was cut off when her cell phone rang. Patricia Hayes, Walter's daughter, who is currently the director of the therapy dog program, was identified by the caller ID. "Sorry for troubling you on a weekend." When Anna responded, Patricia's voice was taut with worry. "Is Thunder with you by any chance?" Patricia asked. "He wandered away from the hospital this morning and we've been searching everywhere." "Oh, thank goodness. That's the third time this month that he's found his way to your place by himself. The staff is beginning to joke that he has a better sense of direction than our GPS." Anna turned to look out the window once more, where Thunder was still sleeping soundly next to Jean. "Yes, he's here with Jean." "I'm sorry, we should have called to let you know." Patricia's relief was audible. "The issue is, Anna, I'm a little concerned about him." She stopped. "Dr. Lawson examined him yesterday, and given that his heart wasn't functioning well, he advised us to begin getting ready. Anna's heart sank when he was almost 15, which is a respectable age for a German Shepherd. But that didn't make it any easier." "Do you know Jane? Do you think she's the only one? If she doesn't," Patricia said quietly, "I believe that's why he keeps coming to her." Anna hung up and met Tom at the window later that afternoon after promising to take Thunder back to the hospital. "Thunder's not doing well," she said simply. "And by the way, Jane has been with him lately, so delicate, as if she's remembering every detail outside, as if they were talking about him." "You assumed as much." Tom nodded. Thunder raised his gray snout to stare straight at the window. "She's going to take it hard," Anna said, adding that Thunder was her first true connection, and the one who initiated everything. "She understands death better than most adults," Tom reminded her, remembering what she said about Walter, that it was like leaves falling so new ones could grow. In spite of his aging, his eyes retained the same intelligence and dignity they always had. He gave one swollen wag of his tail before resting his head back on his paws. They were getting ready to take Thunder back to the Veterans Hospital that afternoon, and although Anna nodded, she was still worried that this would be more traumatic and personal. "Is she saying goodbye?" Thunder asked Jane as they sat in the backyard, their foreheads mashed together in the same motion. "I think they both are," Anna said in response to Tom's whisper as they watched from a distance. The journey to the hospital was silent, with Thunder laying over the back seat and his head resting on Jane's lap. She massaged his fur constantly, muttering things that only he could hear at the hospital. When Patricia saw the Thunder, her face lit up. "There you are, old friend," she cried, bending to embrace him. "You had us worried." Thunder kissed her hand once before turning to face Jane, who asked him a question. "It's okay," Jane remarked out loud. "You can stay here now that I understand." Patricia looked to Anna and Tom, who gave a little shrug, saying, "Would you like to come in for a bit?" They had become accustomed to these one-sided discussions. Patricia responded, "Some of the veterans have been asking about Jean. They say the therapy dogs are different when she's around, more intuitive somehow." A cat that generally kept to itself wandered up to rub against Jean's legs in a corner of the communal room, and the effect of Jean's presence was instantly noticeable within the hospital's therapy wing. The therapy dogs, who had been sleeping in their cots, suddenly woke up and wagging their tails. "Here comes the animal whisperer," an older man said kindly. "Thunder, you old rascal, you went to fetch her for us, didn't you?" Jean's arrival brought a noticeable smile to the faces of the veterans, many of whom were suffering from PTSD or recuperating from physical injuries. For the next hour, Thunder appeared more animated than he had been throughout the day, waving his tail. Jean followed her lead and went from veteran to veteran with each therapy animal, somehow matching the right animal to each person's needs. She seemed to know who needed Thunder's wise, steady companionship, who needed the exuberant greeting of a younger dog, and who needed the calm presence of a cat in their lap. "I've studied animal-assisted therapy for years, but I've never seen anything like this." Dr. Chen joined Anna and Tom in saying, "It's remarkable." as they watched from the doorway. Her ability to intuitively understand the animals and the patients and bring them together in the most advantageous way they can. Patricia gave a nod of consent. She seems to be able to understand each person's emotional requirements and then match them with the ideal animal. Has she ever mentioned seeing or feeling anything other than animals? Dr. Chen hesitantly inquired about potential energies or intuitions regarding people's emotional states. We've noticed certain aspects that Tom carefully acknowledged. So why do you ask? Anna hesitated, looking at Tom. They had always been cautious of Jane's full potential, worried about how others would respond or take advantage of her. Dr. Chen was a little uncomfortable. I've been taking thorough notes on the treatment sessions with and without Jane. Before Anna or Tom could react, there was a commotion from the community room. Thunder had collapsed, his breathing was labored, and his eyes were fixed on Jane as she knelt next to him. The staff veterinarian hurried over to examine the elderly dog, whose heart was failing. Because the improvements in patient outcomes are statistically significant enough that we've been able to secure a major research grant. Grimly, she stated, we must take him to the treatment room. With unexpected authority for a 10-year-old, Jane stated, he wants to stay here with his friends. The veterans had gathered around Thunder and Jane in a protective circle. Their looks serious and understanding. Many of them had witnessed the deaths of colleagues, and they understood the dignity in Thunder's decision. To the veterinarian, Patricia nodded tearfully. Let him stay, that's what he would want. The following events transpired with an almost choreographed elegance. As the other therapy animals clustered around Thunder in a circle, the veterans who could kneel next to them and the people in wheelchairs leaned forward with their hands outstretched in support. Jane sat cross-legged with Thunder's head in her lap, her hands caressing his fur, and her bracelet caught the light as she moved the small animal charm, which seemed to glow with an inner light. He wants me to share something with you all. He says thank you for letting him help you heal. It gave him purpose after Mr. Walter left, Jane remarked clearly in the quiet room. As he said, animals understand pain in a different way than people do. They don't get caught in the past or worry about the future. They just feel what's happening right now. The veterans nodded and wiped away numerous tears. Jane said, he hopes he helped you learn to do that too, as she glanced around the circle. Thunder's breathing became more labored, but his eyes stayed fixed on Jane. She leaned down to whisper something in his ear, something private between them, and whatever she said seemed to bring him peace. His tail gave one last weak wag before he was surrounded by his loved ones. He did, one veteran said sternly, adding, the dog taught me more about living in the moment than any therapist could ever do. Jane's face, despite being streaked with tears, held a strange serenity as the courageous German shepherd who had once dangled from a skyscraper took his last breath. He's with Mr. Walter now, she said softly, and Caroline too, because they're showing him a beautiful meadow where he can run without his old hips hurting. I'd never seen animals behave this way around death. Emma said in a whisper, I usually sense it and become agitated. This is more like a ritual. For several minutes, Emma started to comfort her daughter but stopped when she noticed something unusual. The other therapy animals, instead of displaying distress at Thunder's passing, had arranged themselves in an even tighter circle around Jane and the deceased dog. They sat with perfect stillness, as if standing guard over a sacred moment. Dr. Chen noticed it too. After taking a long breath, Jane, in the center where Thunder was still forming, gently lay his head down and stood up. He's gone now, she stated simply. But he'll still help people, just in a different way. The drive home was quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Jane sat with Caroline's bracelet between her fingers, stroking one of the charms every so often, as though she was finding solace in it. How are you, my love? As they parked in their driveway, Anna inquired. Jane gave a nod. I'm sad, but not too sad. Thunder wasn't scared at all. He was ready. You helped him be ready, Tom replied. That was a beautiful thing you did for him. Anna and Tom sat in the kitchen later that night after Jane had gone to bed, discussing the day's events. "What do you think she meant about thunder still helping people in a different way?" they asked. Anna didn't have to wait long for a response when Tom inquired, and she shook her head, saying, "I don't know, maybe just the memory of him will inspire people." 3 days later, Patricia called to share news that left them stunned. "You won't believe this," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. "One of our veterans, Marcus. You remember him? He had such severe PTSD that he hardly spoke. This morning, he told me that thunder had visited him in a dream last night and showed him where to find the emotional anchor he needed to feel safe again. When I asked him what thunder had shown him, he woke up and, for the first time in years, didn't reach for his anxiety medication." According to Marcus, it was a picture of his childhood dog, who used to reassure him before he left for battle. Anna's grip tightened on the phone, which is amazing and makes it even more spectacular. Patricia went on. 3 additional veterans shared comparable stories. When the call ended, Anna sat still at the kitchen table, trying to make sense of what she had heard about thunder continuing to help people after death appearing in dreams. Just as Jane had described, it pushed the boundaries of what Anna had come to accept about her daughter's gift. An hour later, Tom found her still sitting there, and worried by her expression. Anna told him about Patricia's call. "It's one thing to accept that Jane can communicate with animals," he said, "but this, if she can somehow facilitate a connection between Thunder's spirit and these veterans, maybe it's not so different." Tom proposed following a contemplative piece. "Perhaps death is just another barrier she can cross. She's always been a bridge between the animal world and ours." The following morning, Anna discovered Jane in the backyard sanctuary, where a variety of creatures were present as usual. The fox kits had been returned to the wild, but other inhabitants had replaced them, including a blind raccoon, a limping deer fawn, a crow with a broken wing, and others. Anna whispered softly, "Jane," as she sat down next to her daughter, "can we talk about thunder? You want to know about the dreams the veterans are having?" Jane asked, nodding her fingers as they automatically moved to Caroline's bracelet. The fact that Jane already knew shouldn't have surprised Anna. Patricia did indeed call yesterday, and thunder is still assisting them. Jane stated plainly that you made it possible for him to fulfill his pledge. Jane gave the question some thought. "And I believe I just reminded him that he could." There was a chapter in Caroline's book about how animals don't comprehend death the way humans do. They recognize it as a transition rather than a conclusion. The bracelet also helps. It's like a connection to both sides. She gazed up at her mother with those age-soul eyes that had always seen more than they should. Jane gently shook her head, but Anna took a big breath and said, "Sweetheart, I need you to be honest with me. These abilities of yours are growing and changing. They're not just animals anymore, Mom." Before Caroline's book clarified it for me, I simply didn't know how to explain it. She called it the threads that bind all living things together, and animals simply display them more plainly since they don't conceal their emotions like people do. And thunder, Walter, Caroline, you don't just chat to them, you actually communicate with them. In the years that followed, Jane's reputation grew from a local phenomenon to something approaching legend. The research program expanded, drawing attention from scientists, spiritual leaders, and skeptics alike. Some sought to deny her abilities, while others sought to canonize them. Most simply, though, were the unquestionable results of her work. Animals healed people, comforted connections forged between worlds that most couldn't perceive. On the eve of Jane's 16th birthday, Anna found her daughter sitting in the backyard sanctuary, which had expanded to encompass most of their property and was no longer just a rehabilitation space for injured animals, but a place of pilgrimage for those seeking healing of all kinds. "I've been considering the future. Big day tomorrow," Anna said, settling next to Jean on the bench Tom had constructed years ago. Jean nodded, her fingers tinkering with the silver bracelet that never left her wrist. The charms had multiplied over the years, gifts from grateful patience, tokens from significant moments, symbols of the countless lives she had touched. Jane grinned as she spoke, her voice no longer childish but not quite mature. About what I should do with this gift and what you have chosen. She was gazing out over the sanctuary, where domestic and wild creatures coexisted in inconceivable harmony. After all these years, these casual references to the dead still caught Anna off guard when Caroline finished her book today. What do you mean through me? Jane clarified. The manuscript she left unfinished. I know how it ends now. She's been showing me bit by bit. She glanced at her mom and said, it's about building bridges, Mom, not just between animals and humans, but between all the worlds that exist alongside each other without touching the living and the dead, the seen and unseen, the remembered and the forgotten. That seems like a really difficult task. As darkness descended on the sanctuary, the animals found their ideal place in this haven created by a child who had grown into her extraordinary destiny. Anna said, trying to maintain her composure despite the goosebumps rising on her arms. It's what I was born for, Jane said with the quiet certainty that had always defined her. Even as a 5-year-old standing on a skyscraper ledge to save a dog she'd never met. Thunder knew it first, which is why he called to me that day. A wolf howled in the distance, a sound uncommon in their region but one that had grown more widespread as word got out among the animal kingdom that there was a place where everyone was accepted and understood. Jane cocked her head, listening to an inaudible sound, and a smile appeared on her lips. According to Thunder, happy birthday, Mr. Walter, too. Furthermore, Caroline asserts that the best gifts are the ones we give to others, without questioning these messages from beyond. Anna put an arm around her amazing daughter's shoulders and expressed gratitude for the solace they provided. They're right about that, she added quietly, and you've given more than most people do in a lifetime. As the first stars emerged in the twilight sky, Jean leaned into her mother's arms, and they watched together. It's only the beginning, she said in a whisper, holding the promise of unbuilt bridges, unconnected worlds, and unshared understanding in that instant, in the peaceful haven made possible by love and a remarkable gift. The gap between two heartbeats formed by a girl who once sacrificed all to save a dog dangling from a tower, and in doing so discovered her destiny, seemed to be the same as the gap between all worlds, animal and human, living and dead, visible and invisible. This amazing tale serves as a reminder that sometimes the most remarkable relationships originate in the most unlikely locations. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you were moved by Jane's journey. If you have ever seen an inexplicable bond between a child and an animal, your story might be included in our upcoming film.